Today on the Frozen Fly, we'll be tying ourselves a muddler pike fly. The hook I have is a TMC 8089. This one's nickel. The plating doesn't really matter. So first what I'm going to do is start off, I got a craft fur rug from a Hobby Lobby basically. So I'm grabbing a piece of this. And this has a lot of underfur, so I just take a shedding brush that you'd use for your dog. Getting out some of this underfur, so you can see. So now that that's all cleaned out, I'll go ahead and tie in. You can tie in first if you want. I'm using a white UTC Ultra thread and 140 denier. So we take our clump, we tie this in. And I go and tie up the butt ends. What I just did was I pulled out, sometimes what will happen is some of this will get twisted around, so I just run my fingers through to pull out any of the loose pieces, just so they're not floating around when I'm tying. So I tie this off flat. So run it back to the base and go and get another clump of craft fur. And hold it by the tips and get out all of the underfur. Nice thing about this one is I push a button and it separates like that. I've got some of this saved up, some of the under stuff saved up for just a white, general white dubbing. That has worked pretty nice. So this, what I do is I twist it around so these are actually my tips. I take it and tie in to where my butts are just about where, so my tie-in point's going to be here, and my tie-in point's going to be right where my fingers are. So I tie in right about so that the butt ends will touch the end of the hook, or touch, kind of cover where we first tied in our first clump. So we bend this up. And when I tie this, I tie really shallow. So I go on top of the hook, I bring it down. Normally you would just go like this. I'm bringing it this way and bringing it down underneath. And basically what this is going to do, it's going to help build up a thread base. And this is while I'm pulling this up. This is making a thread base to help train this clump of craft fur to stay facing down. So what that does is it causes this little piece here, opposed with these things. This helps keep pushed down, but this helps keeps it pushed up, so it makes a nice little, almost like a fin. So, tying this up some more. So now we go ahead and get ourselves another clump of our craft fur. Again, repeat the process of cleaning out the underfur if you have to. And the reason you kind of do that is, one, it helps with making sure the long fibers are secured. Because if you have the underfur in there, what can happen is it doesn't want to hold on to it just wants to hold on to the underfur. So I got a little bit smaller piece. I trimmed the buttons. And push this to where I just got a little bit of the buttons. Tie this back. So we have this little lip. So now you can see right here is where this is all going to come down. And secure down these buttons. You don't have to be too critical about getting all of these little hairs in here down. So we got this separation pulled over, like so. Get ourselves yet another clump of craft fur. The reason we're doing this is you can't really do it all in one go. And that is because what will happen is it won't make these layers. You can clean out all your craft fur, I guess, in one go, but you run the risk of, a sneeze ruining it. You have a nice stack and then you sneeze and now your stack's gone. So this one, you tie it in backwards again, and I make sure I try to keep most of my fur on top of my hook shank. So I run this back quite a ways to where I have a big thread gap here, where there isn't going to be any craft fur, but it has a body. And that also helps push this up. So now when we run back forward, we're going to have yet another layer. So I'll run back up to the front, bend this back. Sometimes it helps to do a couple of wraps first and then do these kind of a flat wrap. So this really pushes up now. So now we get one of our last clumps here, depending on how it looks. stack is getting away from me a little bit here. Trim up buttons on this. Tie it in so we have just a little bit of butt here. And tie in these butt sections here. These are the important ones. You want to try to get down a little ways. That, or you can actually go and trim them, because after this we use our deer hair to make a muddler head. I always call them muddler heads because it looks a lot like a muddler minnow head. So like I said, you can either tie those, you can trim it a little. So I had a good layer of thread wraps here. And we're all the way back to where I first tied in, to the, or where I first secured our craft fur. So now we're left with this. So basically this, is going to be our body. So now I am taking some colored fur, some colored deer hair that I personally dyed. One of my field attempts, if you look at my dyeing deer hair video, I kind of just explain kind of what's going on. So I'm using this kind of like a light red, very, very light red, almost like a strawberry red type, or a strawberry blonde, I guess you could call it. So I cut that. I take out any short pieces. Now if you have a hair stacker that is big enough, I definitely use it. I'm using one of my large DIY one. Doesn't work the best, but it helps for sure. So I just stick in all of the hair I want stacked for this first stack. First stack is the biggest, or this first layer is the biggest. It uses the most deer hair. So I go through and stack it. So what I do is I get it to probably halfway. I do 2 wraps. What I do is I push down on this big stack, and what this does is it helps move around all of the hair, and then I do a wrap and pull tight. Do another wrap. Now you gotta be real careful that you don't break your thread. If you pull too hard, you're gonna break your thread. So now we're left with this. So we kind of got our tips, kind of making a skirt on top of the white. So what I do then is I push my thread forward, and then I pull back the deer hair butts, and I wrap in front of these butts. I have this pushed up. You can do any color obviously you want on this head. They really aren't too picky. I've just been using red because, or some form of red, because that's just what I've been trying to get used up all my failed dyeing attempts. So then we take this, we set it right back on top, and we do it right about at the halfway point of the hair clump. If you noticed, what happened was my thread slipped forward. So I gotta build this up a little bit. I'll set this down in my stacker just so that it's easy to pick back up once it doesn't have to be stacked by no means. Basically I'm just doing that to contain the deer hair. So I'm just really building up a thread base so that it's even with closer to the deer stack, to the deer hair, so that it doesn't want to slip. So I get this back out now. So again, 2 or 3 lighter wraps, and push down on it so it spreads it around. Excuse the noise in the background. So then I pull, so it flares it out. Pull my thread forward, and I use a brassy packer. So I put that in front and push back. Tie in front of that. Basically you want to repeat this as many times as you can so that you get as dense of a hairball up in front as you can get. So I can get one more for sure. It's going to be a little bit smaller of a stack. Again, you want as much hair as you can get in this head. And it takes a little practice to figure out how to do it. So 2 or 3 collecting wraps. Push down and twist so it spreads it out. And then I pull, and you notice that it'll twist a little bit. Just keep wrapping, let it twist. So I pull my thread back forward, grab my packer, pushing back as much as you can. So it looks like I'm not going to be able to get another stack there, which is alright. So now I take my whip finish tool. So now this is what we're left with. So I pull over a trash can and do this right over a trash can. So I go through and just kind of lightly pull any loose pieces out. I fluff everything up. What I do is I kind of look the back for my tips. Kind of just make sure those are all laying down some. Then you grab yourselves one of these flexible razor blades. This one I've been using. They're sharp, so be careful. So what I do is I bend it like so. I'm bending it about that much. And I start at the head. And I've kind of got it going in this direction. So what I'll do is I'll kind of almost arc it a little bit. So you do your first, kind of pass through. You gotta be careful where you're going. So you see how you stop basically right here at this end. Right where the tie-in was for the tips. So as you can see, once you get kind of the cut started, it's pretty easy to follow it. On the bottom side, you take yourself a nice pair of scissors. I always like a long pair of scissors so I can do it in one shot. You cut it flat. So now you're left with something kind of like this. As you can see on my side, I still got a little more work. So I just come back with my razor blade. Don't know if you guys are going to be able to see the skirt that the red hair kind of makes. Such a light color, kind of blends in with the craft fur on the camera. I'm trying a different camera today, so if you guys would be kind enough to let me know what you guys think of this camera, if it's better than the one I've been using for my other videos. If it is, please let me know. Just because obviously I want the best quality video for you guys. So the thing is with these is you can pretty much sit there and trim them all day long. And the more hair you get up here, the more dense that's going to be, and on one hand it's going to be easier to cut, it's going to look better, and it's going to work better. But if you can't get a ton up in there, if you got a sharp enough razor, you'll be able to, even with a thin one, with a thin hair head, you know, where you don't have enough, you should be just fine to be able to get more of the hair. You'll be able to get it with the razor blade. Sometimes if I got a trouble spot, I'll come in and trim it up with some scissors in case, so I don't cut any of my skirt. I was brushing out some of these butt ends from when I was trimming, just cleaning up the craft fur because it likes to go into the craft fur. If you do accidentally cut the skirt, there's a couple things you can do. You can either just leave it, or what you can do is you follow a straight line with your scissors and you cut. Be as far back as you can, because remember, you got your tie-in point right about here, and I would cut right probably about there. So again, I just trim. If you're fishing mainly pike with these, pike don't really care. It can look pretty awful and still catch pike. I trim right around the eye, just to make sure the eye is nice and clear for the line. And just like that, one more brush to get all these buttons out. Take out a couple more butt sections here. And just like that, you have yourself a muddler minnow pike fly. Hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If I don't see you guys out there in the woods or on the water, hopefully I'll catch you guys here next time on the Frozen Fly. Have a good one.